Hello friends, Simon Gibson here, reporting for duty. Podcast is Success Won't Come Calling, which is for people who want to be better tomorrow than they were today. My guest in the studio today is Katy Leeson. Katy is Managing Director of Social Chain. She's a podcaster, she's a public speaker, and she's one of, in my opinion, the most important entrepreneurs in the UK today. Katy is going to be talking to me about her arrival at the Social Chain business, her progression to the position of managing director, and the fantastic work she does in not only maintaining a successful business, but through having a very supportive and positive culture for all of her team. I'm looking forward to asking Katy about what's gone well in her career, and also about when she's faced challenge and how she's been able to build up the resilience and the strategies to emerge positively from those to look towards the future. So, I hope you enjoy speaking to Katy as much as I'm looking forward to speaking to her. Relax, put the kettle on if you're at home, and enjoy this podcast with Katy Leeson. Here we go. Welcome, Katy.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's so good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
No, thank you. This is the first podcast in person that I've done in way over 18 months. So I'm very excited to be in real life. It's
of course.
Great. It's great.
Because, of course, you've got your own podcast, which we're going to come to. But have you been exclusively Zoom for a while then?
Zoom, yeah. All my guests have been over video link, which has been fine. It's been fine. But it's better in person, isn't it? It's just so much nicer.
Totally. Well, I'm going to be very nice, so don't worry about that. Now, we do guest rider on the podcast. We drink whatever the guest wants, and you've got us drinking Vimto, so there's got to be a backstory to this. So fill us in, Katy.
It's not like rebellious. I can't say that it's like any sort of story that you're going to go, oh my God, I didn't know that. But obviously, Manchester born and bred. Vimto has always been in my life from a child, and I didn't know until recently that it was actually created as a health tonic. And,
was it?
Yeah, apparently. And I've been a very healthy child, but I literally drank it morning, noon and night. So it was like when I had my breakfast, I had a Vimto. Lunchtime, I just must have been made out of Vimto for most of my child, like my upbringing. And it just brings back great memories, happy memories of being a young, carefree Katy.
Well, do you know what? It brings back good memories for me as well, because I remember I used to have, crack on, I used to have one of those spirally straws. Do you remember them?
Yes.
I mean, I'm probably a bit older than you, but
no, they were great.
They were, and I used to have a few Vimtos with me spirally straw, then have a go on my Rubik's Cube. And that's my memory of Vimto.
It's just so good. It just brings me back to being a child. So yeah, I honestly think I was made of Vimto berries when I was younger. And yeah, very happy memories of being a kid.
Well, cheers anyway. Cheers. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
There's two of you. It was very nice.
I nearly made you drink Hock, the wine, which has made me very sick in the past when I was like 17, 18, and my friend used to steal it from her parents' wine cupboard. But that is vile, and I couldn't do that to you.
That's the big brown bottle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So I thought, do I be nice or do I be mean?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were nice.
I was nice.
So, you know, I'm a great admirer of Social Chain. I love your podcast.
Thanks.
We're going to be working through all of your achievements and also, of course, the future. Mm-hmm. But where I just wanted to start was that, as I understand it, you didn't join Social Chain as managing director, but it wasn't very long before you graduated to that role. So talk me through what happened.
Yeah, so I joined Social Chain 5 years ago this year, and I joined as ops director. But the reason that I joined, and it goes back to like my rest of my career history, I joined really because I wanted to learn about social, and digital and social media marketing wasn't in my area of expertise. And I thought, I'm going to get left behind if I don't move into that world and if I don't start to learn about it. And I am quite ambitious, not like overly ambitious where I'll tread on people to get there, but I always want to do my best. And I knew that if I didn't move into that space, then I wouldn't be able to continue to do that. And Social Chain just popped up out of nowhere at a time when I really needed a bit of a change. I felt like I'd got a bit of comfy slippers, as I call it. Like I knew what I was doing in the role I was doing. I knew it was time for me to learn something new and put myself out of my comfort zone. And the reason that I joined was because of that. I wanted to learn about social media and I didn't know anything. So I joined as ops director, which was a surprise to me because I didn't expect that. I went as for my interviews, I was talking to them about a new business role because that's what I was doing when I was at MediaCom. But they offered me ops director and I thought, let's give it a go, see what happens, take that leap of faith. They were doing some really creative work in and around Manchester, but also with some brilliant brands. So I thought, this could be interesting. And I was there for 3 months before I was asked to apply for a more senior role. And then within 6 months, I was MD of a company that I did not know anything about and was still trying to get my head around.
So that was a bit of a challenge. I mean, what was the process like of that application? Because, I mean, obviously I don't know who else was involved in terms of other applicants, but occasionally you can have a sort of a political situation developing like, oh, he's only just been here 3 months and already he's done this and done that. Was there any of that?
I don't really remember. I think it was I was more focused on my internal fear. Like, what is going on and why do they want me to do it? No, I don't think there was. So you were supported in terms of in terms of your progression. Yeah, and I didn't really think too much about it because I just did it because, as I say, I don't like to let myself down. So I didn't even go into it with the thought that this is what I'm going to get out of it. It was more just, these are my ideas of what I think we can do better. And it all worked out in the way that it has. So, yeah.
And now Social Chain has got a formidable client portfolio. I mean, some of the world's biggest brands you're working with on the social media strategy. Mm-hmm. How has the business evolved in the time since you've been leading it in terms of being MD? Was it already in that position when you became MD, or has it risen and sort of escalated to that level in a time?
I'm smiling because when I started, I was the oldest person at Social Chain. Bear in mind, I'm 37 now, so 5 years ago, I started as the oldest person in the company.
Wow.
And it was a group of the most creative, inspirational young people, but there wasn't any sort of marketing world experience in there. So it was just a group of young people who understood social media and understood what other young people were looking for from social media. And they'd managed to build something absolutely incredible. But there was no structure, there was no process. There was no way of costing out for campaigns. I turned up and they were just like, oh yeah, that'll be 10 grand. Oh yeah, that'll be 5, that'll be fine. And I was like, you're not costing out against the time that it takes to actually do it. No. So I implemented, I think going into it, I had a bit of, and I've talked quite a lot previously about my imposter syndrome and the fact that I didn't know the social media world and I didn't know the ins and outs of how something would operate or the best way of using each platform. But what I realised was I knew little bits of knowledge that could have a big impact about how to build out a proper costing sheet, how to manage time, the best structure for managing clients. And I think the growth of Social Chain, the beauty of it, of where we are now, is that we're like 50% pro and 50% people who have never worked in the industry before. And when I say pro, it's like people that have worked in marketing. And I've managed to hire a really great team of people who've got experience alongside an amazing, creative, just amazing brains that would think completely differently to anyone who's worked in big agencies and network agencies who are just experts on social media. And I don't think it would be at the size that it is now without the coupling of the two.
Well, that's fascinating because from a leadership perspective, I think what you've described there in terms of you going into a new business, bringing different value to the table, bringing different perspectives. I mean, that's what good leadership's all about. It's about taking what a business is good at technically and creatively and then driving it to the next level. It's not about trying to be better than the other people who are there at creative and technical stuff. And in fact, that's the wrong thing to do, I think.
Yeah. It would have been so easy to go in and just over-process it and just trying to make another copy of a network agency of what they've got. But when you go in somewhere that's got this absolute specialness in its core, around the culture, around the people, around the work, you don't want to over-process something. So we're still evolving, we're still learning, and we're still putting the right structures and things in place because we don't want to over-process something that's got that special sauce with it as well.
So there's a couple of things that I'm really interested in. You mentioned imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is a term which I'm aware of. Just talk me through what made you first identify this as something which was affecting you, and what it is, and how you've managed it.
Yeah, so it was because of Social Chain. So I started, as I say, well, let's go back. My career started, I failed my A-levels. I didn't do very well in my A-levels, and I didn't get onto the course that I wanted to do at uni. And I went through clearing and found I wanted to be a journalist. The reason that I wanted to be a journalist, even though I'm not very good at reading and writing, is because I wanted to write for Heat magazine, because I just wanted to be around celebrities all the time. You look back and you think, where was I? What was I thinking? Anyway, I just wanted to be around celebrities and write about celebrity gossip. And I didn't get my A-levels. I didn't get into uni that I wanted to, on the course that I wanted to, but I knew I wanted to go to Liverpool, and I wanted to be far enough from home that I could have a bit of a life that was separate from home life, but it was easy enough for me to get home if I felt like I needed it. And I went through clearing and got on a course called Media and Cultural Studies. And that was a game changer because my school didn't teach media. It didn't teach about advertising. It was very traditional in the classes that it taught, but it just completely opened my eyes to a whole new world. And I found within that a whole industry that I didn't know existed, that was all around advertising, whether that was creating it or actually just buying the space within TV, radio, outdoor press. And I moved into that after graduating, and I became a buyer. So I was buying, still sticking, the magazine theme stayed, and I was a press buyer. So I was buying advertising space within magazines, newspapers.
Right. Got you.
So it was really interesting because it was linking audiences with brands, which is what I still do now, but just in a different medium. And I was trading, and I absolutely loved it. Loved my job, loved getting up every morning, loved the people that I was working with, had a great time. And I moved then into a bigger agency when I felt like I'd kind of got to the point where I'd got those comfy slippers on again, and I needed a bit of a new challenge, new clients, bigger clients. And I was there, and then I got in touch with Misguided while I was at MediaCom, because I'd seen, they weren't a client at the time, and I'd seen a change in one of the magazines. So I got in touch with them and said, I think this would be useful for you. We ended up winning the account. Because of that, I then moved into new business, and I learned so much about the company, so much about how an agency's run, the commercials behind how they make money, the contractual side of things, what to look out for in a contract, all that sort of stuff. That was the stepping stone into Social Chain. That knowledge of knowing how a business is run is the thing that's helped me now get to where I am. But I did not have that social media knowledge. I never worked in digital. When I was doing the new business, I was a jack of all trades, master of none. Really, my role was to herd cats into doing stuff for pitches. Getting everyone in the right place at the right time. When I went to Social Chain, I never expected the trajectory that it happened. And as soon as they gave me the role of MD, I went massively into my own shell, partly because I knew that I didn't know anything about social. And I felt like if I went into a room as managing director, all eyes were going to be on me. And someone had asked me a question about what's Facebook algorithms, how does that work? And I'd be like, I don't know. Or I'd say something wrong, and then that would reflect badly on Social Chain. So I definitely went inwards, and I really struggled with it. But the amazing thing that Social Chain has and continues to do, it's one of the things that I've made sure we've kept, is offering therapy to people when they need it. And I was going through a bit of personal stuff as well. So I started seeing the company therapist, and I was going through my thought process, why I wasn't speaking up in meetings, why I didn't feel like I was representing Social Chain in the right way, how I didn't feel like I was up to the role. And the therapist stopped me and said, what In your head, when you think of a managing director, what do you see? What do you see when you think of one?
Boring bloke, grey suit. Yeah.
That was exactly my answer. An old man in a grey suit sat in a corner of an office that doesn't speak to anyone else, isn't involved in what people's, like, whether people are all right or happy. They're just doing their job and they sit outside of it. And John Major always pops in my head. I don't know why. That, like, when I think of it, it's like, but I don't know why it's him, but a grey man in a grey suit.
He did wear lots of grey, didn't he?
He was the grey man, wasn't he?
He was, because on Spitting Image, I don't know if you were old enough to remember that, but he was actually grey, wasn't he?
And I think that might be why. But yeah, that's my weird mind association. And after I went through that with her, she said to me, have you ever heard of Imposter Syndrome? And I said, no, not at all. And we started to explore it a little bit. And Imposter Syndrome is a thing where you feel like you're going to get found out as a fraud. And there's been research in the US, 70% of successful people actually have imposter syndrome or have had it at some point. And Albert Einstein's had it, Meryl Streep's had it. Like, so many people that you wouldn't expect to feel like they're going to get caught out, they're a fraud, they're not good enough, have actually suffered from imposter syndrome. And I then started to look at why I might think that, why I might not feel like I am a managing director. And one of the first things I did was actually type managing director into Google and look at Google Images. And it's changed slightly now, but not loads better. But at the time when I did it, it was all men in suits. And the first picture of a female managing director was actually a Getty image. It wasn't a real image.
Right, okay. So it's kind of reinforces everything you thought in the first place.
So I'm there thinking, in my head, if I'm thinking that I'm not a man in a grey suit, but also society's telling me I'm not a man in a grey suit, I'm not surprised that I feel like I can't do this job, because there's so many factors that are telling me that I can't. But there are certain things now that I know what it is, I now use it to my advantage. And that sounds strange, but I know that if I feel like I'm not in my comfort zone, it gives me a bit of a kick up the bum to be able to do stuff a little bit differently, or it means that I'm not complacent in the job that I'm doing. So I actually use it now as my superpower. If I feel like that imposter's there, it means that I've got to take a step back and spend a bit of time learning about that thing. So then I do feel comfortable, which then moves me on leaps and bounds.
And also, you made this point earlier, which I completely agree with, that you've surrounded yourself with a good team. Because I'm thinking back to the many situations when I've been in those client meetings when someone said to me, because obviously one of our businesses is legal, another one is tech. I don't know really much about either of those these days at kind of a deep granular level. But when someone says to me, well, just talk me through how we're going to, where we're going to position the server for this project, where in the world are we going to position it? I would usually just think, well, I don't know, but I'd know a man who does type of thing.
I know. But you get fearful of doing that.
Yeah.
But actually, the therapist, when we were going through it, said one of the best examples like that I can use on this. When you're buying a house, you don't try and do the job of the solicitor, the estate agent, the mortgage advisor. You let the specialist do the stuff that they're good at. You need to do that in business. And as a leader, it's one of the best skills you can do. Find the right people that can complement your skill set. And I'm so fortunate that I've got the best senior leadership team that complement my skill set. There's no ego. We don't clash. We just work together so well, but in different areas. And it's just, yeah, I don't think I'll be able to find that anywhere else.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. I mean, the fact that Social Chain had invested in this well-being therapy or coaching speaks volumes about them already. But you were mentioning there about this cultural platform that both was there when you joined, but which you've worked hard to keep at the forefront of the business. Just tell me about what you've done there, Katy.
Yeah, so it's always been so special having culture, and so important to have a culture that helps people develop. And I think when I talked about that 50-50 split before, the people that I've hired from agencies within the big network groups and things like that, they all come in and say, I want to implement change and I want to look after people. And I think past experiences for me have been everyone's been on their own individual journey, and it's been very much like you get on with your stuff and there's been no care or help. what I noticed when I first started Social Chain is the deep inherent care that everybody's got for everyone else, not just their work, but also their lives. And one thing I've been so strict on is hiring people that have that same mentality. Because as soon as I've interviewed some of the people, like obviously with the clients that we work with, we get quite a lot of people who want to work with us. And we've had some of the people with the best experience that you can find. But I said no, because they would impact the culture of what I've got. One bad person could impact the whole team. And I've been so protective over that culture. But the main thing that goes into it is care for each other and the work, support as well. We want to be a place that enables you to be the best version of yourself. Come into work as you are. We will help you be who you are in the way that makes you do the best work. Because to be honest, let's be honest, if we're happier, we're doing the best work we can.
Yes.
And happy work, happy people, happy clients. And I don't think companies do that well enough and put enough consideration into the importance of it.
It's very rare. I mean, we've got an in-house well-being coach now. We've got a program which prioritizes physical fitness, things like yoga and gym membership and that sort of thing. But you are right that whenever I have conversations with other leaders about this, I would say more often than not, there's kind of an element of, oh, isn't this all a bit fluffy? Isn't this all a bit kind of box ticky? And you'll get your awards for being, and you won't make very much money though, will you? Yeah. And I don't think that's right. I think productivity and happiness and engagement go hand in hand. They're not inconsistent with one another. They're totally consistent.
Yeah, my big thing now is like mass personalization, which sounds like it's a contradiction. But I want to create a place where people feel like they can get their individual needs met within a company. And one of the reasons that I managed to actually squash that imposter syndrome at the time when I felt it was because I realised that care and the empathy that I've got for people and the fact that I want everyone to do well and I want to put the right things in place for people is the reason why I'm good at my job and the reason why I got it. And now what I'm focusing on is making sure that we've got things in place that mean the team can be themselves. We've just implemented, and we're also catering for everyone's differences as well. Because I think things like gym memberships is fine, but not everyone goes to the gym. No, they don't,
that's right.
Which then actually isolates some people that then don't get that benefit. What we did is we created last year, a culture committee for people who are working in Social Chain, but know what's going on the ground. And they've come back to us and said, we think we need this benefit instead of that one. We think we need to celebrate this instead of that. And one of the best things that we've implemented from the Culture Committee is a wellbeing benefit. And everyone has access to £50 worth of wellbeing benefit a month, whether that's private healthcare.
So it's like a menu, is it?
Dental, kind of, but not as well. You can pretty much claim £50, which might sound crazy to a lot of people. And old school leaders might think that this is just an absolute waste of money on a P&L. But we let people choose their wellbeing benefit. So some people will go off and play golf one month with that benefit. Some people have bought skincare because they felt like their confidence is really low because their skin's been really bad. To me, wellbeing is whatever makes you feel happier.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by what can I put in on a mass level, but also is right for the individual. And I'm hoping that more companies start to take that similar approach.
I think they should. Have you ever been challenged, faced with a situation where you've been challenged on culture and values insofar as, obviously in business, particularly as leaders, you occasionally encounter situations where it doesn't work out with someone, one of your team, it just wasn't, they join and they're not quite what they seem, they don't quite fit, you don't quite fit them. How do you maintain that supportive culture while still being decisive and taking decisions in the best interests of the business?
You've got to think about everyone else in that situation. With that one person that might not be right, the ripple effect of them not being the right candidate for the role has an impact on everyone else in the company. And the other thing I'm really proud of is we don't mess around. If you don't fit, if it's not working out, if the work's not good enough, we don't let you try and figure it out. We say, I'm really sorry, but I don't think this is right for you. And we try and do it as quickly and easy as possible. if they need additional support after it, we'll offer that. So if they've been with the therapist, say, and I know that they can't afford it after, I'll never just let someone go. I'll always try and do my best to look after someone if they needed it. But the best thing for everybody else, I think it's just thinking of the wider team.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's sometimes it's tough, but I mean, even on occasion, moving people on and being transparent is good for them. Because you've got to be cruel to be kind, haven't you, sometimes?
You don't want someone who's unhappy being in a role that they're not enjoying or feel like they're not very good at. You're best off like having that conversation with them and saying, I mean, we've had it where people have thought we might move into different areas and that's where their ambition has gone. Like, I want to do production. We haven't got an in-house production team. We've got in-house studio, but we don't actually do the production side of it. We're never going to do that. So I think being honest as a leader is probably it's like top of the list when it comes to dealing with people problems, because they then know where they stand and they can make decisions on their own life.
Totally. Yeah, honestly, absolutely top of the list. I can't believe it. We're at the end of part 1 already. It's been fantastic. We've got a short break, ladies, gents. And after half time, we are back again with Katy Leeson. We're going to be talking Katy's fantastic podcast, what Social Chain have got planned for the future, and of course, what success means to Katy. So stick with us. Back other side of half time. Half time, friends. My recommendation this week is to all of the business owners and leaders who watch and listen to the podcast. On Instagram and our other socials, I'm going to put a copy of the monthly webinar that I present to all members of staff in each of our businesses. You'll see that this webinar tells every member of the team how we are performing. It provides them with details of the future business plan, and it also tells them where they fit in terms of keeping the businesses as successful as possible. I get great feedback from this from all sorts of people in our business. They contact me directly. And generally, we've found a very positive response, great levels of engagement, and more productivity. So that's my recommendation this week, which is talk to your team, tell them what's happening in the business, and if you've got a boss who doesn't, knock on the door and ask them to. And now it's back to the podcast with Katy Leeson. And we're back with Katy Leeson. Katy, thanks again for doing this.
Oh, thank you. It's been great.
It really has. I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying the Vimto as well.
It's a treat, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's going down very nicely indeed. You don't have that on a night out, though, do you?
No, but I bet it is quite good with vodka.
Yeah, possibly. I'll have to give it a whirl. It's like what's name?
A cheeky Vimto's are good.
What's a cheeky Vimto?
Port and blue WKD.
Oh, that's right.
And it does taste like Vimto, yeah.
There was a stage, wasn't there? Or it might just be the stage when I used to go out, but everyone was on them, weren't they?
Yeah, I know. In Concert Square, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Those days are well behind me.
Yeah.
So we got to the point, we learned about your very swift escalation to managing director of Social Chain, the fantastic work you've done in maintaining the culture whilst you've grown the business so impressively. And of course, you know I'm a huge fan of your podcast as well, which is called, I know I shouldn't say this, but now it's on all platforms. It's certainly on my playlist. I really enjoy it. But why don't you just tell everyone what was the prompt for you to start a podcast, and what's the theme that you explore on the podcast?
Yeah, of course. So I knew as part of this role, or I was tasked as part of this role for speaking and doing like part of the marketing is the leaders being a bit more present in the world for Social Chain. But wasn't very comfortable and I didn't want to do it, and I resisted it for a long time. Stephen, the founder, actually put it as one of my KPIs. He was smart because he kind of knew that I was ambition driven. Like I like to achieve and tick a tick list. And he put it as one of my KPIs that I had to build a personal brand. And I thought, my God, who's going to want to listen to what I've got to say? And I struggled with it because I didn't want to look like I was just some random talking about stuff that everyone would be really cynical about. So I started writing articles about the imposter syndrome stuff and my experience with going through the therapy. And it was doing okay, but I found it really hard to maintain, partly because I had to sit down and think of a topic and then I had to write about it. And reading and writing, I've discovered now, I think I have a slight amount of dyslexia because I'm not great at reading and writing. I've got so into books in the last 18 months, but I have to listen to them. And I've devoured books at a rate of like absolute speed because I can now do it with listening to them rather than reading. And it just wasn't consistent. And the thing with social, when you're trying to build a personal brand, is you need consistency. You need to be there all the time. And that's where the thought of the podcast came. So I stood up and done a talk on imposter syndrome. Got some amazing feedback. One girl actually went out and got a new job because of the stuff I'd talked about.
Wow.
And there was something in that clicked in me. If I can help people by talking about my experiences that gets them thinking in a way that might make them get to the place they want to get to, that's my why. As soon as I had my why, I didn't feel self-conscious about the fact that I was talking about this stuff. And I shouldn't say this, but was actually born out of, we were trying to think, we know we need to do a podcast, blah, 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 blah. And we couldn't think of a name. And I went to the toilet and I was sat on the toilet having a wee and it came in my head.
Is that where you do your best work?
Yeah. So now we know that having a wee is really actually very productive. And I shouldn't say this, but was born out of me having a wee.
And it's as well as the, as you say, I mean, we'll move on to some of the fantastic topics you've covered on there. I also find a recurring theme is back to what you were talking about earlier in terms of MDs aren't supposed to talk about these things. You might not perceive that MDs are supposed to talk about these things. Was that also a driving force for you finally sort of dispelling that image of what MDs are supposed and not supposed to do or look like or whatever?
Exactly that. It all links back to me not thinking that I should be an MD. But me being me, I am so open and honest. And if I think that I can share something that will help someone else, I will talk about my personal life. I will talk about my work struggles. I'll talk about the things going on at Social Chain that I find difficult at the moment. Because and then the feedback I get is that. And one of my main things was really doing something that was unique. And I didn't want to copy anyone else's format or anyone else's topics. And I thought, if I'm doing it, and I don't think, maybe this is like a little bit naive, but I don't think there's anyone else doing what I'm doing in this space. And I'm very proud of that because I honestly believe it's helping a lot of people, which is great.
Well, it must be. I mean, I've listened to quite a lot of episodes, and this issue of your honesty, it's quite overwhelming at times. I love the podcast, but it is so moving in places because you've had an up and down couple of years, haven't you? Since over the past couple of years. Do you want to share with us kind of what's happened and how you've dealt with that on the podcast?
Of course. Well, actually, like the 5 years that I've been at Social Chain probably has brought the most change in my personal life as well as my work life. And there's been so many learning points within that I think have been the catalyst for me talking about things more openly. So 2 years ago, 2 years, nearly 3. You know when you lose track because of COVID?
Absolutely. It just doesn't feel like a year, does it?
No. Some time ago, a couple of years ago, I actually suffered a miscarriage. And I afterwards was trying to get my head around it. And knowing that 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, but no one's talking about it and no one is caring enough to share. Well, not that they don't care enough, but no one is talking about it publicly, that it makes it a taboo. And for me, it's not a taboo. It's something that happens, but you need the support around you after it to get through it. And it took me a while, that one. That one took me a long time to get my head into recording it. And I actually did it with the Miscarriage Association charity just to help with that actual science and help and the charity support behind what I went through, because I didn't want to make it too personal because everyone's experience of miscarriage is very different as well.
Sure.
The way your body reacts to it, the way you feel about it is really, really different. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that there was a way that you could get information if it unfortunately happened to you. And it's probably my proudest moment because the feedback that I've got, even internally at work, unfortunately, as I say, it's so common that it happens.
Absolutely.
And I've managed to share it with a few people, and knowing that just me talking about it openly has made them feel like they can ask for help if they need it. Because I hid it for a while at work. And then part of that then led me into situational depression. And I really, really struggled. And it was it was Christmas Eve that I had my miscarriage. which is just, I mean, it's awful anyway, but the day, like Christmas Eve is just probably the worst time. And then by Easter, I still hadn't told work, and I was trying to just carry on and trying to just think it's fine, everything's okay, I've just got to carry on with life. And I broke at Easter, and I had to tell work, and I had to take time off. I couldn't really get out of bed. I've sat on so many lunches where I just cried with my friends without, like, just for no reason. And I went to the doctors, and they put me on antidepressants. And I've recently I'm coming off them now. And that experience has been really strange, going on them and what it does to you, but also coming off them. And when I was coming off them, I like to do my research, and I like to have a bit of science behind what I'm doing. And there's nothing online that tells you what your experience is when you come off antidepressants. And I was like, I need to share my experience to see, again, whether that'll help someone else. So that one I wasn't as emotionally connected to, because I saw the reaction to the miscarriage one. The miscarriage one got overwhelmingly positive feedback, apart from a few people on LinkedIn, not to gender it, mainly old men, telling me that I shouldn't be talking about something like this on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn isn't the platform for it. And I don't clap back. I never clap back to people who write something, but on this occasion I did. And every single one got a message back saying, why don't you think that me talking about a charity that is supporting people that can help someone's life is not the platform? LinkedIn isn't the platform to do it. And yeah, that's
it's
the
a
only time
very
I clap
strange
back.
logic, isn't it, to suggest that a platform which is sort of promoted as a place for rational discussion shouldn't be something where help is given and sought. I disagree with them on that, and I think you dealt with that very
It goes back to
well.
what we were saying before about workplace not being a place for culture
Yeah.
and mental health. And it's just, unfortunately, the old way of looking at it. And me talking about that on a platform that's seen as a work platform was the thing that jarred. But yeah, very proud of what I got out of that in the end.
Rightly so. And when you were going through that challenging time, which anybody would find challenging, you've mentioned the fact that you were able to reach out for help, which is fantastic. Talk to me about those you had around you in terms of providing you with support. Were you able to talk to friends or to family?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I had a great support network of friends and family who just knew me very well and knew something wasn't 100% right. But work were incredible as soon as I told them as well. Part of the team that we've got, a social chain, is a happiness team. Their role is to make you happy, but they're also there if you need support. And they're there as someone that you can turn to if you don't want to go to your line manager and say that you're struggling with something, because they can then implement the support that you need, whether that's in counselling, whether that's in, we've got a life coach now that's one part of the business. So they know the places that they can turn to get to help you if you need it. And the head of happiness, or the director of happiness that was in the business at the time, was just so helpful to me. Just making sure that I knew that the business would be there when I got back. I didn't need to put so much pressure on myself. Everything was fine. And work were amazing. They just gave me the time off that I needed.
Well, they're walking the walk there, aren't they? Because, you know, it's that goes beyond culture. It goes down to actually letting your values flow through your actions. And if you don't do that, you undermine your culture. So I'm pleased with that. What would you say I'm sure you've helped so many people who've been faced with these challenging circumstances. What would you say to someone who perhaps through a range of different circumstances might be suffering in terms of their mental well-being, but that they are bottling how they're feeling in, they're being dismissive of the way they're feeling, they're trying just to power through it. What would you say to them in terms of making first steps to improvement?
I can only talk from my own experience because everyone is very different. But when I did that, I got to a point where I broke before, and I should have really talked about it sooner. And I think don't be afraid to reach out to a person that you trust, because you're not going to burden them. They're going to know that something's wrong. You're not going to be a burden. They're going to want to help. And also don't be, and I think I was fearful about admitting defeat and going on the antidepressants, but actually it's not a defeat. It's something that can help you get back to where you were. And even in that podcast episode, what I said at the end of it is, I'm in a better place than I was over 2 years ago because of the journey that I've been on through all of this. And I honestly believe these moments when you are at your lowest and it's the hardest, you come out of it like a phoenix. You come out of it knowing so much more about yourself with a better perspective. It just takes time, and know that that is a possibility. But I'm like, as a person, everything, like I am so much better because I know myself better, and I know I'm so much happier, honestly. And it's not because of the antidepressants now, it's because I've learned so much about it. The hardest points give the biggest lessons.
Totally. And I mean, it's not a great comparison, the one you've given me such a lot there. I feel I really should give you my own experience. I had a business fail, or more of a business relationship fail, about 10 years or so ago, which led to me having to leave a business which I'd been involved in building for 10 years. I felt that I was being perceived as the guilty party, so to speak. And I sort of took some of that baggage with me. It took me a while to work through it. I didn't seek help at all. And I think that's why it took as long as it did. But I'm like you now. I look back, and I mean, there's things where I'm almost glad they happened, because I'm thinking, if that happens again in any circumstances, I'll handle it so much differently. Yeah,
I'm the same. And it's a horrible thing to say, but I'm glad that the miscarriage happened, in the respect that I now have got a much better, happier, content life with myself than what I did before, which is a really bizarre thing to say, but it's the truth. We always say at work, whenever there's a mistake or when anything bad happens, it's lessons, it's not losses. And I think for me, that is a life lesson as well. You learn something from it. You don't lose things. You learn things and you come out of it. If you get the help you need, you come out of it in the right way.
I agree with that. And it's not only, I think, will people be inspired by your story and how you were able to respond, but also the fact that you're a strong leader, you're a good communicator, you're a great person. I think people can take inspiration in that as well.
Thank you.
It's not just about getting through it, it's about emerging as a more rounded human being. So good on you, Katy.
Thank you. I think it leads to more empathy as well, because you don't want someone going through what you've went through.
Absolutely.
So I think it's helped me become a much more, not that I was an empathetic leader anyway, but I think it's made more of that as well.
That completely comes across.
Thanks.
So the future. Now, social media generally, of course, is very much at the forefront of business. What's Social Chain's business plan? I know you're already global. You've got clients of some of the biggest brands on the high street and in business. What's next for the business, first of all?
The thing, like, when everyone asks me that, I never know what to say. And it's not because I've not got a plan. It's just because, like, we live so much in the moment, because social changes in an instant. There could be something new that happens tomorrow that we've then got to react to. But the reason that Social Chain exists is to keep brands at the forefront of what's possible. And we are exploring ways now that we can take advantage of innovation quicker. We can be at the forefront of creative tech. And when I say tech, social media platforms are tech. So how do we create creative opportunities and creative content on platforms that may not even exist yet? We want to grow. We're always aggressive in our growth strategy. We want to but to be honest, my main driver always is doing good work. I just want to do great work. I'd love to win massive awards. I'd love to win a Cannes Lion for some of our creative work. We've worked really hard over COVID to hire the right creative talent for the business that have worked in other agencies previously that understand social. And that, I think, is going to be a game changer for us, because I want to be known for our creative work. And I don't think we are at the moment. I think we're known for the culture and the story. And it's the next phase of it is we're now like an adult. We're growing up, but it's now time for the work to shine and the creative work. And I want to be known for that creative work.
Exciting, really exciting. What do you think? You mentioned there about platforms which might not exist yet. One platform which has got really popular during COVID is TikTok.
Love TikTok.
Is it here for the long term?
Yeah.
Do you think so? Because
I love it.
Someone was telling me that. I can't even remember who was telling me. It might have been a podcast guest. She was offering the view that did Snapchat sort of jump up and then jump away? And I think she was saying TikTok, when COVID's gone, it might be less of a thing.
No,
Do you not
I think TikTok is around and here to stay. The movement that they're making, there's a few things that internally they're doing at TikTok. See, it's funny this, isn't it? Because I said at the beginning that I'm not that close to platforms and I worry about talking about social. But you get me on TikTok and I'm like the expert. They are moving into e-commerce, so you can buy directly through the channel. They are massively competing with Facebook and Instagram in terms of being in platform and being able to buy what you're seeing on platform straight away, right the way through. But also they are, for me, the forward-thinking leader in terms of development and using a platform for good. So for me, and a big thing that I am very passionate about at the moment is that I am sick of seeing the mass amount of negativity around social media and the fact that there is such an amount of confirmation bias with adults telling us that it's a downfall of the next generation. For me, we are creating the most talented, creative bunch of young people. And if they know how to use social in the right way, TikTok is an incredible space for that. Then I think we can create a bunch of young people who know how to really use social to better themselves and connect with people. So TikTok, for example, have got a stream that's one of their focuses that's Learn with TikTok. You can go on there and learn about how to get a mortgage, how to change car oil. There's so many things on Learn with TikTok that you don't get anywhere else that I don't know these things. So for me, there's a big job. The job though needs to go back to adults. And one of the things that I think is that adults currently are like travel agents when it comes to social media. They talk about the destination, but they've never actually been themselves. And they worry a lot about their kids going on social media, but don't actually go. Whereas what needs to happen is they need to be tour guides who know the terrain, who know how to use the machete in the parts of the jungle where they needed to.
Yeah. This is the most incredible metaphor I've ever heard.
But it's so true.
And you're saying you're not known for creativity?
I have got to say I did steal this from one of my friends, but I am using it with pride.
Yeah, you are.
And I think like that is probably the biggest thing that adults need to learn, because there's so much learning opportunity with young people and social media and using it in the right way. And the thing is as well, people don't understand that social is of your own making. You create your social experience because the algorithm feeds you what you look at. So if you're looking at stuff that's making you sad, you're going to get more of that stuff that makes you sad.
You are.
But no one thinks in that way. Adults just think that kids are going to go on it and see things that are then going to make them compare against other people, or it's going to cause online bullying.
Well, it's so interesting, because there's a guy in the US, there's a comedian called Ari Shaffir, and he actually tested this insofar as he Googled nothing but puppies for about a fortnight.
It's like my TikTok.
Really? And he made the point you did. He said, it's not social media's fault, it's people's fault.
It is.
So if you're going to seek out materials that makes you angry or frustrated or biased or anything, that's going to keep popping up.
It is. You create your own world on social. And I think that they've got such an opportunity to, especially TikTok, as I say, that Learn with TikTok platform and pillar that they've got, I think can help change the world, honestly.
Oh, I think
it's not
you're
going
right.
anywhere.
Well, it's not, and it is exciting. And I mean, before I started this podcast, I didn't really know what a hashtag was. I was a bit of a social media snob. But I think for all its wrongs and for all the areas it needs to improve, I do still like the principle that it gives a voice to people who wouldn't necessarily have had a voice before quickly, and it can be used to hold public figures to account. I do agree with you that when it descends into negativity and pile-ons and that sort of thing, I don't like that. No. And I hope that we can work our way out of that.
we've seen a really positive shift in social usage in the last 18 months over COVID. So pre-COVID, social was being used more and more for just content consumption. COVID hit and we were all locked in our homes, and we saw a shift into it being brought back to what it was actually created for, which was social connections and ways that you can then stay connected with your friends and family that you can't see. Luckily, that has continued, that trend's continued. And I think as long as we can capitalize on using it in that way, and also creating a space that you can help deliver your values and what you want to get out of your life, we'll be in a great place. It's not perfect, but nothing is it?
No, it's not.
But it's not, I don't think it's the devil that it's made out to be.
No, I agree. So, I mean, we've got to round off with the same question I ask all of my guests, which is, you clearly are a successful person in business and as a human being, but what does success mean to you, Katy?
Happiness. I think everything that I've been through, I'm not as driven now by reward. It's more, am I happy in the work that I'm doing? Is it giving me do I live my values in what I'm achieving? Am I setting out to do what gives the fire in my belly? So definitely happiness. And it's the main thing. Like, money doesn't buy you happiness. Fame doesn't buy you happiness. The ultimate thing is knowing your values and being able to live by them.
100%. Money can be part of enjoying happiness. It can be something to even, get you to different places in your journey. But you're right, without that underpinning fulfillment as a human, what good's money? Yeah. Not at all.
No. So yeah, definitely living my values. And then that's what makes me happy.
Fantastic. Well, what has made me very happy is you coming on my podcast, Katy. It's been an absolute joy. It really has. I've enjoyed the Vimto.
Good, I'm glad.
I've enjoyed your company. It's been absolutely fantastic. We wish you all the very best with the next stage in your chapter. We hope you'll come back and see us. But in the meantime, it's Katy Leeson. Thank you, Katy.
Thank you very much.
What was that point where you realised that you wanted to make your own business?
When did I realise that I wanted to run a business? Do you know what? I don't think I did. And I always say, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Still, now. When I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to be. But I've always taken opportunities to learn. And I think now, looking back, I knew that now, but I didn't know at the time, one of my values is learning. And it's the thing that keeps me motivated. So I've always moved in my career around opportunities to learn. And my biggest tip to you, if you want to, whatever you want to do, is spend a bit of time looking at what your values are and what really puts that fire in your belly. Because then whatever decision you make in the future, if it's aligned to those values, it's going to keep you happy, and that's what's going to make you produce the best work. Yeah. So honestly, I never thought that I would be in this position. I've just lived my values, and it's helped me get to where I am.
So Katy Leeson, what a guest.
She was great, wasn't she? And she's, first of all, she's leader of a genuinely pioneering social media business. Mm-hmm. She's clearly passionate about maintaining a supportive culture while succeeding business-wise. And also, I just think it's such a pleasure to speak to someone who's been undoubtedly a success in business, but who has retained being a nice person.
Oh, it all is amazing, isn't it? She was so calm and collective, wasn't she?
She was. And the fact that life, like for us all, has presented challenges which in Katy's case would have, everyone would have found them very testing. Mm-hmm. But the fact that she's not only got through them, but that she's emerged from it with greater resilience, looking positively both at the experience and at the future. I was clinging on her words. It was excellent. It really was.
Yeah, well, she spoke about imposter syndrome. Now, that's something I've never actually heard of, to be honest. And when she was taking me through it, well, not me, taking you through it, it just resonated with me so much, because I thought had that without realising. My confidence has been low when I've been promoted. I know I've been good at my job. The minute I'm put in a room where I think people are judging me because I'm not a certain type of person and things like that, I thought, wow.
Well, I think we've all been there, haven't we? When you're in situations which you maybe lack confidence, maybe you lack support, and perhaps you're under the spotlight. And I really did like the way that Katy's business Social Chain has got the support networks in place to help when those sort of challenges are hit. So I've certainly learned a lot that I want to take away and look at our business and see what we can blatantly plagiarise.
I'm jealous that she's worked with Stephen Bartlett. I'm a massive fan.
Oh, are you really? Yeah,
Total fan.
he comes across as an absolute barnstorming leader, doesn't he?
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Well, remember, I'm the leader of our business. You know?
Sorry. I still like Stephen better.
Oh. Well, on that note, we're going to call it a wrap for me and Stacey this time. It was Katy Leeson, was absolutely fantastic guest. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. See you next time on Success Won't Come Calling, which is the podcast for people who want to be better tomorrow than they were today. See you guys.
Bye.